Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of the Premier Pauper League here on Cool Stuff Inc. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Ullman. I'm here with Brian Koval. Say hi.
Good evening. Hello.
So we have a lot of action here for you tonight. I am not Kendra Smith. We'll get that fixed in just a second. That Brian is definitely not Alex Ullman. There we go. So first of all, thank you again to our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. They're bringing this to you tonight, and we can't thank them enough. If you go to their store and use the code PPL5, you'll get 5% off in the store. This doesn't stack with their other customer rewards. Also want to say a really big thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this event. Could not do it without you guys. So, Brian, you're playing tonight.
I am. I'm ready.
So you have an interesting deck list. You have basically a snow teachings deck, but it's not running red, which is kind of one of those traditional main deck colors. If we could get that up on screen in a few minutes. Why did you go green?
Well, Chris Stagno built this deck. He is a friend of mine. I believe he has some sort of Masters of Game Design from CMU. He's very smart when it comes to putting decks together and stuff. And he retired from Magic for a few years, but then rediscovered Pauper and bought straight back in. And he's just been brewing his face off ever since. And he sent me this list. And everything in this list, I had all the same concerns you did when I first saw this. I promise. Whatever you're thinking right now, looking at this image, I was like, what the heck? Where's the second devious cover-up? Is Worm better than Sprout Swarm? 3 Astrolabes? What's this Trinket Mage doing in here? Like, what are you doing? And it has all made sense over the past week and a half that he and I have been putting tons of table time and theory chat in text and everything to get this where we want it.
So I guess why Havenwood Worm over Sprout Swarm? So Sprout Swarm is kind of the traditional end game. It's a buyback spell. You make a 1/1 with Convoke, and it just can make a ton of tokens. So why, excuse me, the Havenwood Worm?
Havenwood Worm is pretty close to indestructible in this format. The played cards that can actually deal with a worm are very small, and Trample is huge. This is the biggest creature that, short of Ulamog's Crusher, this is the biggest creature in the format that could get played. And it has Trample, which is really important. Like Sprout Swarm just takes so long. Chris did the math, and he, I don't remember what the math came out to, but you need a lot of Sprout Swarms before you start hitting with the power of Worm. And Worm just turns the corner the fastest of all the available options.
You also had the Grim Harvest engine with Grim Harvest and Muldrifter, so that makes sense.
Exactly. Yep. It being a creature that you can harvest back, there's a lot more dispels in the format than there are things that can deal with Havenwood Worm.
Makes sense. So 1 devious cover-up instead of 2. Yep. Why?
Well, that is another subtle nod in the direction of Grim Harvest. You might notice that Archaeomancer, that's my second devious cover-up.
Okay, makes sense.
So with Grim Harvest, Archaeomancer, and devious cover-up, you can go forever.
Yeah, okay.
Given enough time, the deck has all the pieces. Yep.
Excuse me. So that is really interesting. I'm really excited to see how this goes. You're running a ton of new cards. You got the 3 Arkham's Astrolabe, and we'll talk about that card in a few minutes. You got Weather the Storm. What is the card that you think is, that people are not going to respect out of your list tonight?
I think Desert is going to chew up 2 of my 3 opponents. We were chatting a little bit in the pre-show before we went live, and you said it's a rough week for Desert. But I disagree. I think that it puts a squeeze on elves in a unique way, and it can really pressure those flying creatures out of the snow deck.
Yeah. So if we can bring it back, let's talk about the snow deck and Arkham's Astrolabe. That's kind of the hot topic around Pauper these days. You had a really eloquent, I don't want to say an eloquent rant on Twitter, but it was an eloquent rant on Twitter about why you don't think it's a problem. And it's basically because this card is new. I think at this point it's been in the format for about 6 weeks. It's kind of this I know Pauperganda's in the chat, and he talks about the new card smell. It has that. It does so many things that this format really likes. It fixes mana. It draws cards. But
right. So my point in my Twitter conversation the other day was not that Astrolabe is not a problem, definitively.
Yeah.
It's that I think it's too early to freak out. And because I do think Astrolabe is very pushed, and I think it might end up being a problem, but I think it's only a problem with core Skyfisher.
Okay.
Like I guess it depends. Like, is it a big deal if control decks can splash Weather the Storm? If you're a burn player, you're not going to like that. Sure. But as far as like, what is the most messed up way to abuse Astrolabe? I think it's putting a 2/3 flyer into play and drawing a card on turn 2.
Yeah.
It's like cantrip turn 1, 2/3 on turn 2, replace that 2/3 on turn 3 and play another one. Like, I think that's the package that makes this card maybe too strong for the format. And then I guess Wizards will have to decide if Core Skyfisher is a bannable card or if Markup's Astrolabe is a bannable card.
Yeah, I personally don't think either are all that bannable, at least not yet. I think Core Skyfisher is kind of this, when it's not generating card upon card of value, it's this really neat creature that does a lot of cool things. I mean, I've played a lot of Loyal Cathar and Core Skyfisher to kind of buy back 2/2s, which is eminently fair. I mean, but
yeah, I think that is cool.
Yeah. I also think that it's hard because Astrolabe is this card. We were talking about this a little bit, how you can't really deal with its value. It kind of comes down, it replaces itself. And then if you take care of it, well, you've traded a card for a fresh draw. And it kind of automatically puts you down a card unless you can, I was talking about how much I like 10th Street Hooligan these days, because that at least gives you a body. Now, granted, that body is fragile, but...
Right. It also requires that you play Gruul.
Well, or just Burning Tree Emissary.
Right. So, all right.
So we got an interesting match to start us off. We got two people who are great at their respective archetypes. We have Kendra Smith, and she's running Elves. It is the deck that she is best with. She won Star City Games Pauper Classic with this deck, not this exact list. Then we also have Joseph Horani. And you might remember Joseph, he made the finals of the Pauper MCQ at Grand Prix LA playing a similar version of this deck. Blue-White Familiars. It's a flicker combo deck. He's included a mill finish with Sage's Row Denizen. It's going to be exciting to watch. Then we have Ricardo Matana versus you, and that is kind of Snow Boros versus Sultai Teachings. Then we got you again, and you're playing Kendra. What do you think about that matchup?
I think game 1 is rough, and game 2, I have a lot of tools. So we'll see if she can take a post-board game off me.
We'll see. I definitely I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. We then got Snow Boros versus Familiars, and I think Ricardo, he came prepared. He has, looks like 3 Power Blasts.
5 Red Blasts.
3 Power Blasts, 2 Red Elemental Blasts. He does not want to let anyone resolve spells. Then we got Kendra and Elves versus Ricardo, and that means Standard Bearer is going to be the big key card. And then we're ending the night with what looks to be a very long matchup of Teachings versus Familiars. I hope you have a cup of coffee, is what I'm saying.
I got my cup of Coke Zero right here. I'm fueling up. That's going to be a grind, and it's the last one of the night. There's a good chance I'll fall asleep during the match, but I'll do my best to stay awake for everyone.
I got a pillow right here. I'm going to take a nap when I'm not on broadcast.
Smart.
Yeah, we'll see. The other big thing is Ricardo's not going to be joining us in the booth tonight at his own request, but we're going to be casting his matches. So he's also going to be hanging out in the chat, talking to all you who speak Portuguese. He's from Brazil, so we're really excited to have a member of the Brazilian Pauper community here. There's this huge community in Brazil, and I'm so happy we're able to get Ricardo to join our league.
Yeah, I'm watching the chat right now. It's like mono Brazil, mono Portuguese, mono Go Brazils. The fans are there.
That is awesome.
I'm so glad they all came out.
So let's talk about Kendra and Joseph. It's elves versus familiars. What do you like in this matchup?
I like those Stonehorn dignitaries in this matchup. That's my answer. And as a response, I like that harsh sustenance out of the board from Kendra.
Yeah, I think... I mean, I've seen both these players. I've played against both these players a ton on their decks. I think I want to... It's really going to come down to the play. I think Kendra has a small edge game one just because Joseph's interaction is not great against elves between snap and negate. But game two, it's really going to come down to, do those dignitaries show up in time, or does Kendra get that harsh sustenance? Because if I'm looking at the list correctly, Joseph doesn't have any natural damage prevention. He also has Mystic Remora, which is pretty bad against elves, but it's going to be really good against you.
Right. He's got the rest of the boat of Stonehorn dignitaries in the board. Those are obviously all coming in. And he's going to try to turtle up quickly before she can get in burn range with the sustenance or the longbows. Yeah,
he's set up, though, for a long game with the Godpharaoh's Faithful.
Yes.
So really quickly, these are two combo decks. How Kendra's deck work is kind of similar to Modern and Legacy Elves, only without Heritage Druid and Gaia's Cradle, obviously. Kendra's going to generate a lot of mana with Nettle Sentinel, Birchlore Rangers, and then spit out her hand, going to reload with Distant Melody and lead the Stampede, and try to win either by going wide and using Timberwatch Elf on an unblocked creature, or go tall with Elvish Vanguard, which is kind of this really huge ad from Eternal Masters a year ago, or 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that got shifted all the way down from Rare.
Yeah. Then on the other side, we have Blue-Red Familiars. And so how this works is it gets its name from Sunscape Familiar, which is this cost reducer from Plane Shift. There we go. But what you want to do, what it tries to do is it tries to just generate an unbound loop, or what sometimes called an infinite loop with mana. And we're about ready to start, but basically how Joseph is going to win is either through attacking with flyers or by milling Kendra's out with Sage's Row Denizen. So this should be interesting. And I think we're about ready to start. So
do it.
Let's go.